Welcome back, everybody. Look, Herman Li in the house.
I made it.
You did. I'm so pleased, man. And it's it's a little bit of a flying visit. You're flying back to LA this afternoon, so we're just going to try and. It just was too good an opportunity to miss, not to try and get something in the morning. We're going to talk about your new PRS guitar, but life in general. But I think I'm always. You mentioned. Born in Hong Kong, moved over to the UK when you were 12, been living in the US for the last 10 years. So, you've seen a bit of the world. But I was most interested in, you were a late starter to the guitar relatively, and clearly it hasn't held you back from a sort of a technique perspective. So how come you started late, just not into it before then, or didn't have the opportunity?
No, I was into rock music ever since I heard it, right? Guitar solos, the first time I heard it, I thought, wow, this is so cool. What is it? What is it? What's making that sound? And I didn't really I got started when I was 16 because another kid in school, he was playing he was like a squire, right? He was just playing some Red Hot Chili Peppers and Nirvana. And I thought, this just looked fun. And my parents hated video games, right? So it's like, well, if I play music, maybe they'll be less annoyed about it. I mean, look at me now, probably, I started growing hair afterwards, that was like different problems they had. But yeah, I just started when I was 16 because I wanted to play something that I thought sounded cool. And I was happy to just learn a few chords, to be honest, at that time. It was, funny enough, talking about, starting at 16, I get so many questions from anybody saying, oh, is it too late to start the guitar? Is it too early to start the guitar? And the thing is, you can start the guitar anytime. You're 50, you could be 10, it doesn't really matter, especially now there's so much material on the internet to get better fast. So they actually got no excuses not to start.
You must have really gotten that bug for it though, because, how many years was it from 16 to you really feeling like you were putting yourself out there as a lead guitar player in a kind of speed metal kind of band? What was the?
I think so. It started when I was 16, right? So I started DragonForce when I was 22.
See, that's crazy, right?
And I played in some local bands before. Yeah. And funny enough, I was at home in London digitizing some of my old VHS tape of me like hair up to here, just like trying to play and stuff. I think it's just, I kind of went into this kind of like guitar zone when I started playing. So I thought, well, to help me get better on the guitar, I was listening to music when I was asleep. So I had CDs, on repeat, right? While I was asleep, thinking it's going to train my ears. And I just played whenever I had the time to. I brought a guitar to school almost every day to do during break, right? To play.
I mean, that's committed, and I think that's the sort of level. So I'm just, you mentioned you were listening to rock music all the time. Now you're sort of child, I guess, of the late 70s you born, and so I guess you'd have had a lot of 80s influence even before you were actively playing the guitar. So who was it, or what bands can you think of that looking back must have had a sort of profound effect on you?
I think when I heard The Final Countdown by Europe, the Bon Jovi stuff, the Richie Sambora solos, always so accessible, they're so pleasant and memorable. That kind of started me off in like, wow, this is really cool. Then you heard Iron Maiden, it's like, wow, they got way more guitar solo than these guys. Yeah. But I was really into all that stuff. Bryan Adams, Bryan Adams, like awesome production, guitar, sound, solos. So, then you move on, right? You get into like the metal stuff, like Metallica, then obviously Steve Vai, Satriani played a big role in inspiring me to play for sure. Did you?
So the other thing, because that happened obviously right at the end of the 80s, sort of into the 90s, was that kind of virtuoso guitar thing became quite unfashionable. But this was almost just at the time that you were probably starting to get into it. So was there ever a sense that your guitar playing went down of a more sort of a grungy route, or were you very always true to sticking with that sort of virtuoso sort of music? Was that always your passion?
Well, funny you asked that. I was so uncool in school. Like, I started around 92, 93.
Right.
So that was like the transition period.
Exactly.
Like, everyone's getting into grunge and all that. And I like Nirvana and different stuff, but I wanted to play guitar, lead guitar kind of thing. So I was super uncool. The stuff I was getting into is like, apart from Pantera, no one really liked, the rest. You know, George Lynch, I was into all these guys, all the Shrapnel records, shredders like Tony McAlpine. So pretty much, everything, right? Because you need to listen to different kind of music to inspire you.
Yeah.
But, I think in order to at least get where I am, is I had to be stubborn, right? This is what I like. I'm going to do this. I'm not going to play something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
There's that. So I could have been cool in school, but I wouldn't be cool later on.
Exactly. So DragonForce was your first sort of serious band then, if you were only 22 when that started. How did you find like-minded musicians? Because it's quite a niche. I've been listening to a bit of DragonForce over the last few days and just sort of thinking, there's a real 80s kind of. It reminded me of TV shows and video games and that over the top thing that the 80s seemed to have. And so I'm just kind of thinking, I wonder how many young adults there were in 1993 or ever sort of going, yeah, that's the music I want to make. How did you put the band together?
Pretty much in London through ads. I remember putting ad on Metal Hammer, or in Terrorizer magazine, whatever you can do, right? In the studio, and we rehearsal studios and look around that way. So we ended up with a bunch of people that would do it at the beginning, but obviously you get what you can get, right? There wasn't a second choice. It's like, well, you want to do it? Well, you're the only guy that called. So you started off that way. So obviously that leads to lineup changes later on when it works. It's like, I don't really want to do that much because my girlfriend don't let me. These other guys have different things to do. But it was just about having fun, to be honest. It wasn't like a career choice or thinking, I want to be a musician, because you play a music that no one listened to in the UK, for sure. You can barely get any gigs. That was like, let's have fun and just kind of, to be honest, the early days, like, let's do a show, get drunk, have a laugh. I'm happy. That's all I want to do.
So this is what, round about the year 2000, I guess, is it's all sort of kicking off, right? So beginning.
Yeah.
And that's funny. That's what I was going to ask, was it tough to get the band established? Because you haven't really got internet at that point, have you? So you've got dial-up probably. So you're really reliant on that sort of old-fashioned way of getting known. You just got to go and do gigs and see who turns up. So were there points in the early days of just going like, man, I'm here playing to 4 people, or was it pretty popular from the off?
Oh no, it was like there was no one coming to the show. There's like maybe. I remember the first show, 2 people came to see us. But it doesn't matter. We're doing it for fun. We're not trying to be famous or anything. So I remember like, okay, we have a day job. So the weekend we book some shows. I get my beat up Citroen estate car, shove everything in the back, and let's go do a show. Have a great time on the weekend. And I think that's what brought the fire in us. Is like, because we're not meant to be here anyway. We're just having a laugh.
Yeah.
So when it all kind of broke out, we're like, well, I guess, we carry on doing what we're doing,
And so I know that obviously it's reasonably well known that you got a massive amount of publicity off the sort of Guitar Hero kind of thing. But prior to that, you must have been, you were obviously signed prior to that and established enough for a brand like Guitar Hero to go, oh yeah, we would like to work with these guys. So where did it start to take off? Was it just, it just gradually grew, or was there another moment that,
So, I did the old-fashioned way, right? So by my demo CD, I would go harass record label people in the backstage of festivals, like Wacken Festival. I did the old school way, and we did our shows. And I show videos of our live shows, you know, because you got to show that part still back then. And so in 2004, on our second album, actually on our first album, we got to Japan already.
Okay.
With Halloween. It's like, wow, this is cool. It's my dream come true. I can't believe it. I'm playing Japan, doing a tour. And then it kind of went pretty quickly. 2004, we did the Iron Maiden tour in Europe.
Right.
Like for the early days. And we did our own headline shows too and play in front of, 200-300 people.
Yeah.
And then when the third album came out, which is about a year before Guitar Hero, probably a year and a half actually, it already blew up.
Great.
And we did the Ozfest, which was on the main stage, first time ever doing a US tour.
Yeah.
And before that, we had sold out US tour without ever releasing an album. So it was kind of blowing up, and then they wanted to put us in Guitar Hero.
And that sort of DragonForce image of, the sort of very fast kind of almost sort of catchy kind of over the top kind of melodies and parts and everything. Was that how it was right from the start, or did that kind of, because I've not gone back, I don't think, as far as the first album, or was it more, I don't know, a little bit more toned down mainstream metal kind of thing at that stage?
Yeah, definitely none of that going down. I mean, there were long songs and with million guitar solos, even the first album, or actually even the demo, because people used to laugh at us back then, the early days, and they say, well, why are you playing this kind of stuff? There's no one listening to this stuff. Why are you playing guitar solos? This is so lame. So it's like, well, I guess if it's lame, we're going to do more of it and go even faster. And that's
that's our audience.
Yeah,
that's
we evolved. So the third album, when it came out, it's similar to the first one, but just we got more experience, you got better at everything, and you just kind of made it more over the top. But looking back, it's like back in 2006, it was started. I wouldn't say we did it, but we're part of a movement that made guitar kind of cool again slowly, to play the guitar solos.
Yeah.
And people used to say to me, wow, you're so good on guitar. I said, I'm not, trust me. I'm not that good. But grunge came, new metal came, they wiped out all these amazing guitar players. And then suddenly I'm good. Yeah, I'm not that good. They just kind of wiped out the competition in a certain way. So, I told them, listen to Shrapnel Records, those guys, they've been doing it longer than me. But, I'm lucky to, people appreciate what I do, right? That's the main thing. It's not about...
I mean, it's very modest of you to say that you're not that good, because you obviously are. But I know what you mean. That sort of... I remember I first started working in Andertons just as the sort of grunge thing happened. And it was it had become a real problem in the guitar, in people learning to play the guitar, because they would very, very quickly realize at the end of the 90s that it was going to take them years and years to be as good as Mark Knopfler or Steve Vai or any of those guys like that. And then Kurt Cobain and Noel Gallagher and all these even some of the new metal guys were just going, well, look, if I just do a drop D and go doo, it's like you can do this stuff in weeks almost, and all of a sudden guitar sales went, oh, amazing, like I'll learn to play then, because I can play these songs. But I do agree, the most beautiful thing about music is it's always cyclical, isn't it? There's always a point where new things happen or people rediscover old things that they'd forgotten about. And I agree, that kind of sooner or later, after 5 or 6 years, people did start to go, I want to listen to something a bit more complicated on the guitar again. I want to stretch myself, challenge myself. And I guess that fits in perfectly with that sort of 2006 boom. And much as I think we all mocked Guitar Hero when it came out, like if you could actually play, I remember friends going, I've got to level 12 on Guitar Hero. And it's just like, that's really not playing the guitar, man. That's just pressing buttons. But I think it did have a really positive impact on people going, oh, maybe I will get a real guitar now and have a go. How involved were you in that Guitar Hero thing?
When they contacted me, I already knew about the game because I'm a gamer myself. And I played it, the first two before. Just on a controller, for fun, because I like this. It's kind of cool. It's different. But they just like, I would say, these moments in time, right? Guitar Hero definitely helped guitar for sure. And I met a lot of musicians now that told me that they got into guitar because of Guitar Hero and DragonForce. You know, I said, that's, you know, like, it's kind of, well, I'm old now. I'm like that generation of influencer, you know? And the grunge era, I think that's great. Now looking back, it's like, because it shows that guitar is a tool to express your artistic side. It's not about how fast can you shred, how fast, you know, it's not like you either be this level or just don't play at all. So I really appreciate the different kind of music, you know, that different musician can bring out the guitar than just like, all right, we got to do arpeggios, we got to shred the hell out of it, you know.
So how does that? So you're over 20 years then into the DragonForce journey now, which is fantastic, you know, success. How do you approach each new sort of album and each new sort of cycle as it comes around? Are you trying to sort of predict maybe how tastes might have changed and what you might want to try and do to be, you know, relevant and popular, or do you just like, we have our thing and that's what we love and the audience can either like it or not, but that's where we're going?
It's pretty much how you put it. You like it or not, that's what we do. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? We need to have our artistic expression when it comes to playing guitar. And I love listening to different kind of music. You know, I listen to like Tosin Abasi and, you know, Polyphia. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And funny enough, I had some lessons from Tosin, you know, because we're friends. I said, show me how to do that thing. I want to watch your instruction though. And during the pandemic, I actually learned his techniques. But then I thought, well, but I don't want to play it, that kind of music. So I forgot how to play that kind of thing now when you don't practice it, right? So I think it's important to, I wouldn't say you don't have to do it, but you know, the guitar can be enjoyed in so many ways. You can just play other people's music covers, which brings different joy, or you can make your own sound. So I would say I'm a specialist in what I do, and that's what people recognize me for. And I like playing some jazz, but I wouldn't play in front of people, you know. I wouldn't play some fusion in front of them. I go, well, it's not that, you know, it's not my skill, right? And it's just like, it's the freedom of expression. I think that's what the guitar represents to me than like a violin, you know. There's different kind of things you have to do to learn it.
Yeah. I on that, I think one of the reasons the guitar is so enduring is it's so connected to each individual player in a way that if you have particularly I think if you have a keyboard-based instrument, it's much harder, I think, to press a key in a way that really gives an impression of the emotion from the player. Whereas when you're playing a stringed instrument, it's every touch and nuance and everything is your signature emotion. And I suppose wind instruments and violins is similar, but the guitar seems to almost be like the ultimate instrument to convey the individual's feelings and emotion. I think that's a good segue onto. I sort of want to do the DragonForce gear journey. So when the band first started, what was the sort of touring live rig? Is it embarrassing to even say?
And nothing is embarrassing to me. You know, I did it, so it must meant something for me at that time. You know, times goes past and change, right? But the reality is there. Back then, you know, to be honest, I never had a guitar lesson. You know, my parents couldn't afford to do that.
Okay, all self-taught. Wow.
Yeah, I don't think I only bought 2 new guitars back then in my whole life. You know, the first one was just a Squier Strat. And then I got a year later, I bought like a Ibanez EX360, which is the entry-level guitar, like a used one, actually, with a dent on the fret. But it's like, well, that's all I can afford. I have a guitar with a dent on the fret. That's it. Yeah. And then I think, you know, then I had a Ibanez S470.
Yeah.
S470 because I can't afford a 540. So I bought that. I think I got it for
That must have been a profound thing because all of your guitars have stayed with that kind of S sort of body style vibe, haven't they? Sort of thin on the outside, fatter on the inside. So what was it about that? Did that really resonate with you when you first got that guitar?
You know, I was actually in Hong Kong visiting families, and it was cheaper to buy a guitar there. So I went in there. It's like, well, there was like the Satriani, which I thought was really cool. I was big into Joe Satriani. I love the curves and the roundness. I ended up, getting the S because Alex Skolnick played an S, and Frank Gambale has his S signature and all that. And that kind of like, I connected with that guitar. So that was, I guess that was like one of my main guitars. It became like the big guitar that I used on Through the Fire and Flames. The big hit song. But during that time, I had like a Washburn, like MG 44, some kind of cheap stuff. I picked up a Jackson Professional USA 1985 off the like cash converters, right? Because the grunge have like wiped this guitar, and it was like £150 for USA Professional, like San Dimas guitar. I still have it. I picked up a Gem for like £600, used one. It's like unbelievable.
You know what? There's a great investment opportunity there. You just need to go, what's massively unfashionable now, and go and buy as many of those guitars as you can, and just wait for 5 or 10 years until they're fashionable. Because that's incredible. And you are right. Nobody wanted Floyd Rose shred guitars when Oasis were massive.
Yeah. I mean, I can only afford one for £200. Imagine I had money then. I would have bought the whole lot, you know?
That's cool. Yeah. So this is all early DragonForce era or pre-DragonForce at the moment?
I think before I built DragonForce, right? Then I had, that's my collection. I had an S540 I got used again off eBay of some guy who's getting rid of it. And I had the Marshall JMP1. So I was mainly, those guitars talked about, I used it on the album, right?
Yeah.
The Gem 7 with the burnt top. I had the S470 Ibanez and the S540.
Yeah.
Bought some DiMarzio pickups. The one with the neck pickup was on sale. So I put that on the bridge because that's all I could afford. So I'll buy that one. It's like 20 quid cheaper instead of the bridge one. That whatever I can, do it yourself. And then I've got a Marshall JMP one.
Yeah.
A MIDI preamp. I love that thing. I still have that, and whatever I could find myself used.
Yeah. So I guess this is all. Well, this is all back in the day where the only option was to have an amp on stage and a microphone in front of it, and which I kind of, things have changed so much now, haven't they? But so was that in terms of you? I can see obviously the Ibanez relationship has obviously stemmed out of you owning a few Ibanez guitars that you liked. And then you were using normal backline, I suppose, with the JMP. When did Ibanez first approach you and offer you a signature guitar?
So I was playing these guitars, of course, on tour already. And I remember I knew some guy at Cradle of Filth that had an Ibanez, some kind of deal or something. So he gave me a contact in America. So I wrote to them in 2005 to say, you can give me a deal if you want. Otherwise, I'll just keep playing these guitars. Very British, right? You don't have to give me anything, but if you want to, you can. Otherwise, I'll just play these guitars I bought. So I had a deal, and I didn't get any guitar from them at all.
Right.
Because at that point, they didn't make an S model that was made in Japan.
Right.
They only had the kind of like a fake Prestige one. Sorry, I don't mean fake, but it's the made in Korea, not Fujikin factory. And it didn't play the same.
Right.
So I had the deal, and they made me a custom. So I said, well, can you make me a custom guitar? Yeah, so they made me one. I went to Ozfest in 2006. It's like a big US tour, right? There was System of a Down, Disturbed headlining, these kind of big bands. And the first day, the guy came, he's supposed to bring my custom guitar. Oh, he said, sorry, it got ran over the airport and broke the headstock. So I didn't play any guitar from them, even had the deal for like 2 years. And then, the band got really popular.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, we want to offer you a signature guitar now, So they gave me some guitars and stuff, but I didn't like them because they just weren't the quality of the one I bought in the 90s, the Fujikin stuff. So I said to them, well, I actually already got my guitar design when I was a kid in my mind. If I can, it's a dream, right? It's it's my dream to have a signature guitar, like look at Steve Vai, Satriani, these amazing players. And that's kind of how it came about. So the S series with the 24 frets was born, with me saying, well, you should change this, you should do this way. Because I play a 22 frets guitar most of the time. Yeah.
I love talking to people who have got the guitar bug bad. And like you, it's just, you know, there's some people that play guitar and they love guitar, but then there's some people that just have it bad, and you've got it bad.
I got that problem. Yeah,
I love it because it's like you're just so into it. Well, look, so that was cool. And then I guess so for many years, obviously we'd see you playing the Ibanez Herman Li model, which was kind of cool. Obviously we've got another guitar to talk about here, but in terms of just, I kind of, before we get round to the PRS thing, and hopefully we'll hear it in a minute, tell me about how your sort of JMP1 journey, you know, like did you have a load of pedals on the floor, or were you like everything rack gear? And obviously the current touring is gone over to the modeling thing, whether it's Kemper or QC, depending on where you're at. But what was that journey? You know, were you ever lucky? And maybe lucky is the wrong word. I always think if you're a rock star, what you really want is 4 full Marshall stacks, everything standing in front. What did that journey do?
My journey was, you know, I was into Dream Theater, right? And John Petrucci had the fridge as a rack.
Yeah.
I wanted the fridge, the rack gear, bang, 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 bang. So JMP1, I got that. I had a Rocktron Intellifex.
Yeah.
You know, this is
amazing.
Old school, right? I remember buying that back then in Denmark Street.
Yeah.
You know, we're going back there in London. People know, you know,
yeah.
when there was lots of shops there. I picked up a used Mesa Boogie 5050 power amp for that. That was,
like
I'm talking about
50 kilo rack mount power amplifier.
Actually, before that, I had the Marshall one, the gold one. That's even heavier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I picked all this one up. Like, it was cheap, 200 quid. You know,
because rack gear was an 80s thing, so as soon as you're into the 90s, you can just pick all this stuff up for nothing.
Like bargain prices. I mean, it wasn't a bargain for me because I was broke,
right.
You know, as a student, and
yeah.
You know, but yeah, that was the kind of the journey, right?
Did you ever buy anything for your rack rig that was just there for lights to flash in it?
Well, the cork tuner, right? The cork tuner, the strobe lights. That is the one you have to have. So funny enough, I was back at home in London. So there's the strobe tuner that is now sitting at home because it doesn't go on tour anymore.
You know? we used to sell spectrum analyzers. So like it was a piece of sort of professional PA soundman gear, but it was like a double rack unit thing, and all it did was the lights would flash up and down, you know, based on the frequencies you were playing. And people would just put that in the rack just because it looked cool. You'd have all the flashing lights.
I wish I knew. I would have got one too. So yeah, I was a big into that. You know, the MIDI pedal board.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of those. So pretty, I would say, you know, pretty uncool, you know, but it was like
super cool, right?
You know, now maybe it's cool again. I still have all those gear. I haven't sold anything, you know.
I have every so often. So I remember, maybe not quite at that level, but I remember all the sort of Zoom stuff that came out in the 90s, and when Roland had like GP8? Anyway, all this kind of stuff. And I kind of, in my mind, this stuff sounded amazing, like super, super cool like that. And then every so often a piece of used gear comes through Andertons like that. And you go, and you plug it in and you go, wow, it sounds terrible. It's like, how did we think this thing sounded good, you know? But I'm not sure if that's just, but at the time I just used like, I think JMP1 probably is enduring. I think that's just permanently good. But something like the Intellifx, which at the time was just like off the charts good quality, I bet if we plugged that in now, you'd go, not that good, is it really? But
I do wonder. I didn't turn it on. I was just there for a few days. But yeah, I had the Johnson J station.
Yes.
You plug that in now, you go, this is horrible.
Yes.
Why did I waste my money on this? And I remember when the port came out, everyone's going, oh, this is so amazing. You plug that in now, you think, interesting. You know, compared to the new stuff they do, it's not even the same. Yeah.
Oh, it's so brilliant. So you never really did the whole, you know, valve amplifiers or as in, you know, traditional like JCM 800 kind of route that many of the other kind of rock guys, I guess, would have gone. You've always been interested in how to integrate, you know, different effects and stuff. So I suppose that was a fairly natural move for you to go over to something like QC, was it? It's just everything you need in a little touring device.
Yeah, I love the QC because you can go on tour, and if your other QC is broken, you add the other player in there. So I have programmed them in that I play in it, the bass player goes in it for fly rig, it's so easy, and then extra third line in case the other guitar players QC breaks or lose the power supply because I lost the power supply back on the Mexico tour. It's like zero chance in get another one, so we're running on 2 instead of 3.
That's probably my only real sort of criticism of QC. It's just like and because it's not a normal 9-volt power supply, so even if you break it, you're just like, ooh. But there you go, everybody. Travel with 3 power supplies just in case.
I do have 3 backups now.
But this was cool. So when Herman arrived this morning, like we just said, he hadn't bought his own QC. So it's very cool that we just give him our QC. You just log in. Down from the cloud is all of your presets. Boom. It's now your QC, right? So it's cool. So look, let's talk about these. I mean, these are, especially that one, is an absolute stunner. So is this the one I saw? You said this is the one I saw you playing in January at the NAMM show. Yeah,
this is still the prototype, which is the last prototype. This is the production model, which got all the things I wanted added. So this is the final one, but it's not easy to make this guitar. So I don't even have a same color of this in the production model yet.
I mean, I'd like to know how the relationship with Paul and the PRS guys came about, but the first thing I noticed about this, the way the jack is recessed and then the sort of body contouring you've got around it, I mean, that is a challenging. I mean, look at the cards on the back. I can imagine that whoever had to program the CNC machine to make this, it probably took them weeks to work out how to do it. But it's a beautiful looking thing.
Yeah, the cable is now totally recessed in. If you have playing on stage, you put the strap here, you got wireless, whatever. It's totally taken away, and everything is there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like the reason for this carve is my old guitar used to be a front jack pushed in. So sometimes I grab the whammy bar on stage and my finger would catch the cable and it gets stuck. So this guitar, I tried to solve everything I could, like as much as possible. And it was about designing a guitar not just for me to play, but for the world.
Yeah.
Like to as many players as possible.
Yeah.
I feel like, look, it sounds really weird. But it's like, I felt like, well, I'm this guy, this kid that's just like playing in his bedroom. I got up here. I was given a blank check to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm responsible to give the guitar players that is same as me that wanted certain things that couldn't be done on the guitar that currently exists, and put every detail I could, like fix as many problems, or kind of all of them actually in this case.
It is a beautiful thing. I mean, let's go over some, because for people that perhaps aren't going to be able to get to a store to try one of these, the neck profile, it's not like wizard thin shreddy, is it? It's almost like a sort of a slightly wider, slightly slimmer Strat neck. It's not kind of crazy wizardy, is it?
Yeah, too thin. Like, I had an Ibanez guitar for like Signature for like 12 years, right?
Yeah.
So this is it's not like a wizard neck. It's similar, like if you compare an Ibanez, right? Because people can know what that is. This is a bit wider, and the carve is a little bit different, for the improvements of not just playing fast, but also nice bends and tone. I mean, let's save the neck, because now I have the bug, right? I'm a real guitar nerd. So, and I'm sure your channel here, if they're watching this,
there'll be loads of people watching this really interested.
I won't feel bad being a nerd about it, because they go, okay.
Absolutely.
So, like, how can I say? This is for the first time, in my knowledge, this is on production, a 20-inch radius flat neck with a double locking bridge. So there are 20 inches flat, but none of them have a double locking bridge. So this is a custom PRS made 20-inch, along with this Godo bridge, 20 matching flatness of the guitar to kind of take into account the new modern techniques that exist now, that players from gent to
I hadn't even realized.
shred.
So I mean, I think people need to understand the significance of this. Is PRS, and I think this is why a few artists over the last few years have started to work with PRS, because to tool up to make a custom designed locking nut for a 20-inch radius fretboard would have been incredibly expensive. I mean, this component here is useless for any guitar. For like 99.999999% of guitars made in the world, this locking nut won't fit. So the fact that Paul E. Smith have gone, we'll make you that, no problem at all, I think that is their attitude towards the artists that they want to work with. It's like, you want it, we'll do it. And not many other companies do that.
And you can feel it's nice and smooth. You know, a lot of the florals, you touch it and you can kind of cut your hand. You see how smooth it is? It's completely, everything about it has been engineered. So it's like you can play fast, slide up there, you won't hurt yourself if you knock on the florals nut. And people out there watching this video can grab the florals nut, the original one. You can go, oh, this is a little bit sharp, you know, but
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So super flat radius fretboard. I mean, is that? I guess that's because you just want the action low, right? I mean, the action is low on this, so it's not for old blues hacks like me. It's definitely for people that want to play fast.
Well,
isn't it?
you know, you got the option of both, because I was always thinking, even though I play in DragonForce, right? I love other music, right?
Yeah.
Gary Moore, Hendrix, I mean, Jeff Beck, I love all that stuff. So at home, I still try to play, like jam along to those albums. You know, I wouldn't play in front of you guys, but you know, I'm a learning, practicing musician forever, right? So for me, I wanted a guitar that I can play everything from home to on stage. So that's why kind of, you know, the whole thing is designed that way with the nerd in mind, is that this is not a laminated neck. Right. To get a neck this kind of thinness and having one piece neck, so it sounds better as it ages, costs a lot of money. You can see. So this is the one piece neck, and people don't understand this. In case they don't understand, this laminated neck is when you glue a bunch of wood together, so they become strong and make the guitar more affordable. You know. And this is, I said, I want a one-piece neck.
I like the volute on here as well. You just, because that's one of the problems always. If you put a locking nut on it, you drill quite a bit of the wood out. So obviously you then make the head joint a little bit weaker.
Yeah.
But you've just added that like 5 mil of extra chunk around the back here, just to sort of reinforce it. It's just really nicely. It's really nicely done.
For the test of this is, I don't think anyone done this at PRS. I said, look, we got to test the neck properly, right? I don't want this thing to fall apart. So we had this guitar line up, and I would just hit them, they fall on the floor. And then I full guitar across the room to see if it breaks or not. It broke? Okay, well, we got to do better, you know? This is what went on at PRS. It's kind of crazy, breaking
I love it.
breaking private stock guitars to make sure they are tested, you know, to work. So, yeah.
So, and then we've got a glued-in neck join with a really lovely kind of sort of chamfered kind of heel around here. But again, you'd perhaps more typically see this with 4 recessed bolts. But the set neck kind of idea, people often say, gets you good sort of, you know, vibrational sort of transference through the neck into the body, into the pickup. So I'm guessing that's, what was your Ibanez was a bolt on, right?
It was a bolt on, but I would glue it for the one on stage.
Interesting.
Because how aggressive I am with the guitar, you know, for the stage, in the early days, the neck would start moving left and right, you know, in the socket.
Right.
So the moment I glued it, the tone transfer sounded better.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't think about it. So it's actually it's just to keep the neck in its place.
Yeah, sound better, keep it in place, and of course, look at the access on this.
Yeah.
Honestly, look, I can get my little pinky.
Yeah, that is crazy. You're up to this 24th fret and you've barely hit the heel.
Look, I can go all the way to the. That's how much my pinky can get up here.
Even the first finger vibrato on the. That's good. When did you first do the scalloped thing? That's a Steve Vai thing,
Steve
right?
Vai inspired. So it does help you give that little bit of, you know, split second when you need to make something happen fast when you get down there. Little scallop give you a bit more room, especially if you've got bigger fingers. And when you get down there, it helps a lot. So it's really for those tiny moments when you need it, like DragonForce. I'm playing at 200 BPM. I need to get up there and do that bend. I need that little scallop to help it.
I mean, that is the joke. If I don't suppose many people will still be watching this video if they haven't listened to some Dragon. Well, maybe they will, but if you've never heard DragonForce stuff, you have to go and it's just, what's the right word? You do have to sit and admire just the technical ability of a band to play that fast. You know, but it is another level to anything else I've really ever sort of listened to. Anyway, let's go back to the guitar. So you got a mahogany body by the looks of things here with like a maple top. Is that stayed on the production model?
Yes, so this is not a veneer. This is a real top.
You can see easy on this one where the split is. Almost like it's about 25% of the thickness of the guitar is the maple top, isn't it? And the rest is the mahogany.
And you can see the shape of the guitar is. This is like something out of Star Wars when we look at it on the computer, because the way we were spinning it on the it's like the Millennium Falcon, right? Because the carves and everything was there all for a reason. Yeah, but we got the top here. There is, you can see everything is carved with the wood, right?
Yeah.
Your one is not.
Less carved, this one, isn't it?
It's kind of the earlier. This is probably like 1 year before we finally got this one here. The jack here, as you can see, just goes in there. Everything is made for a reason. The carve, not just the front, the back here. The reason the carve is pretty deep here is not only the access to playing here, but we have to look into when we're standing up. So it's got you can access the guitar, all the frets in all angles. Sitting down, that's your easiest way of playing, right?
Yeah.
But when you're standing up, it's different. And it takes into mind, if you do like the advanced 6-string sweep picking here, on a normal guitar, your knuckle would hit that lower cut.
Right.
With the way it's angled, you can see it doesn't.
Yeah.
I can do 6-string sweep picking here without ever hitting this, which is like, we need to approach everything and just kind of like.
I like the weight of the guitar, because some of those basswood kind of bolt-on neck sort of S-series things, they're almost too light, if there can be such a thing, you know. But this sort of feels like a familiar kind of weight, doesn't it? Not too heavy, not too light.
The right weight.
Yeah, sort of in that nice, comfortable band. Goto hardware. This is a Fishman Modern Fluence set, or what have you got in here?
So these are my signature.
Oh, okay.
They're called Omniforce. So it comes out basically same day as the guitar, right? It just came out.
I didn't even know you had your own set of Fishman pickups. Okay, and it's the same idea though. You've got like a two different voices on the tone control, right, for the pickups.
Oh, come on, I'm a nerd. We gotta
you
go
got more
everything.
Than that. Okay.
3 voices.
3 voices.
3.
You better go for it.
So I took advantage of everything the Fishman Fluence technology had to offer. So we actually got 15 different sounds on this guitar for like. So I try to remember every single thing, but I'm not going to go through everything. It's better people read it than they go, this guy just blabbing on, right? But if I pull the tone here, it goes to voice 2.
Yeah.
So how I would describe these pickups are, even though it needs a battery to run, like power, but it's actually a passive pickup sounding pickup. So in normal voice 1 position for the humbuckers, they're like passive pickup with the fluence tone. Fluence means the Fishman Fluence, when you play them, you hear frequencies you never heard before because of the new technology, right? It's cleaner, and there's like this certain range that was all muffled in like traditional frequencies. So that's that. But if you pull it, it actually sounds more like a non-fluence traditional hand-wound pickup. So for people that go, oh, well, I like this, but I still prefer the old school way. You can just pull this knob.
Right.
But of course, I don't want to play like this forever, right? If that's the sound I want. Well, the good thing is if you want it play voice 2 the whole time as your main thing, you can push this down and use one of the micro switches to turn it around the other way. So voice 2 stays forever down.
That's a good idea.
Because on stage you can press the backs.
I don't like on guitar. I always think if you've got one of the knobs sort of sitting slightly higher, you don't really want.
I can't handle it. It's like I can't look at this thing. I'm a crazy guy. So I just switch it.
Great.
Or on stage, if you've got
Yeah.
different stage
Yeah.
that sounds different, you want more frequencies, then
Yeah.
you can just switch it. And while we're on the switches, there are two
Yeah.
switches, right? The second one is to actually bypass the tone knob.
Okay.
So I like having a tone knob because in studio you can do different
Mm-hmm.
stuff. You know, if you try to play some kind of like softer stuff, it's good to pull the high
Yeah.
down, yeah? But on stage, I don't want to have to worry about if this is on or off.
Right.
So I just put the tone bypass on.
Yeah.
And actually change the pickup sound a little bit because it cleans it out, right?
Yeah.
It takes out the tone. So that's there if you like me, that is obsessive about if everything is all right, is everything
Yeah.
perfect, then
Yeah.
you just turn it off, you know, I know this is on or off the whole time. Yeah. So going back to the pickup, so we've got 5-way switch.
Yeah.
That's normal. When you go pull the volume, it splits into voice 3.
Right.
So how do I explain voice 3 is, on a normal traditional pickup, when you split it, it's your humbucker split into 2. You've got the sound of it split. Well, when you split on voice 3, it's actually a different sound.
Right.
It's not half the coil of the humbucker. So we made a separate voice, which I was like voicing against different strats, single coil guitars, like some classic one, I have some newer ones, and to get my favorite kind of single coil sound, voice to 3. So,
Right.
you know, it's technology, man.
Well, I mean, I'm looking and you got so this is like a Goto's version of a Floyd.
Yes.
And it's quite a different kind of steel block here. It's a brass block by the looks of things. And then is this all just this? Is it? I can't remember what this is called now. Is it like a Tremel no go or what's it? What's it?
So this is a custom. This is a PRS made. Talking about how expensive it is to create things
Yeah.
that no other guitar is going to use. This is a stabilizer.
Right.
How can I explain it the best way? I guess
You could.
we got to play a bit of guitar to explain.
You should. I mean, you could if you've got like a cleaner sound in there. You could show us the voices and all sorts of stuff.
But let's talk about the bridge here. I remember. So, look, I played double locking bridge most of my life, and sometimes you just want to kill yourself when you're tuning these things, right? You just go, oh my God, you know, this is not getting in tune. Well, I like the flexibility of the, you know, of what a double locking bridge system can do, but I also love what a fixed bridge can do.
Yeah.
So how do we find a happy medium? Well, this is what the nerd have turned up with. So on a normal guitar with a Floyd, if you bend one string, all the other ones goes out of tune.
Yeah.
So when you're bending, you're always fighting against the bridge, right? It's moving forward all the time. That's why people hate it. Well, on this one, look, we're gonna play this. I'm gonna bend the string.
But the tremolo still moves if you use the arm. It is.
Back into the floor. So with the stabilizer, now the bridge is no longer fighting me when I'm doing vibrato. Bridge
Why
doesn't
doesn't
move.
everybody use that? I mean, surely nobody wants I mean, you're right. That's the whole drag with any guitar with a trem system. It's just worse on a Floyd.
Yeah.
It's just as soon as you start changing the pitch of the strings, the tremolo moves. But I mean, it does. You do feel it's a stiffer.
It's a stiffer
feel than a Floyd kind of thing. Not so much on the down, but on the up, it's a little stiffer, isn't it?
So this might be a bit kind of a bit deep, but we have addressed this problem because you can adjust the stiffness of these springs. So if you want it to be less stiff, then you can just...
This is like the McLaren F1 of the electric guitar world, isn't it? It's just like you can just do everything on this thing.
This is the F1 up. That's what we talk about in the meeting.
Right.
You know, when we're making this car, we're making a Formula One, you know, winning car. So you can adjust it. And of course, because some people use different gauge strings.
Yeah.
So you need different stiffness on the stabilizer to stabilize the bridge. You know, compared to my old Ibanez, which does have a stabilizer, which is like an Edge Zero bridge.
Yeah.
But you cannot adjust any of the springs.
Right.
So if you play tens, you're done. It doesn't stabilize the same way anymore. It's just a different system.
Yeah.
But this one addressed that. So, you know, less stiff. Or if you don't want it, you can just take the whole thing out.
Right.
So this is, you can remove this and go for just like
And then it's a normal Floyd
normal
style.
Floyd. So
Yeah.
the choice is up to the artist. But that's what I love about it is your guitar stays in tune. So when you tune it, it's like tuning a fixed bridge.
Yeah.
It's like fast. You saw me tuning earlier.
So you could conceivably just very quickly drop D, tune, and then back to E, and it can take that, can it?
It can. It depends how you set up your guitar, right? If you have more, how do you say? If you this is like really depending on the artist.
Yeah. So more tension. Then you can do bigger tuning changes, and it handles it.
Yeah. They can watch the video.
Yeah.
We have lovely people at PRS that made the video to explain this. I said I was going to do it, but I didn't have any time to like, explain it myself. So I got them to do this for this guitar. You can see everything is locked down, so the springs, cannot come out. There's
oh yeah, wow, man.
We're not giving them any chance of going out of tune at all, right?
We haven't even talked about how cool the Dragon inlays look. I mean, it took me a moment. Obviously, I realized they were Dragons, and I get the DragonForce thing, but it took me just a second to go, you've even replicated the idea of the original birds. So like as the Dragon is diving, it's changing its shape like the birds change on a regular PRS guitar. It's a very, very cool. I always think as well, when you see, I've seen the laser cutter that PRS have, and when you look at, especially that 12th fret inlay, I mean, it's like you're talking like fractions of a millimeter kind of engraving, and it's just perfect. That is a lot to take in, isn't it?
I know, it's kind of a complicated guitar, but we made this for, the world, right?
Yeah.
To be like any level.
Yeah.
You want to play this, you can make it. That's why, we talk about the pickups here. The splits, I'm not even going to explain it, but you got the double humbucker to do the Gary Moore thing. You got the single coil splitting here, obviously the one nearest to the neck for that nice twang kind of thing. You got like every single split that exists, pretty much I covered here. There's one extra that doesn't exist on any guitars I know.
Right.
But it's like let's make it that way so you can discover new sounds. So they gotta read the diagram, otherwise I'm gonna turn your channel into even mega nerd one. But yeah, so this is we're at the back. We don't need a 9-volt battery because it's USB charging. On the Fishman Fluence here, you got the switches here. You can see the electronic department was carved with the wood. In there is the Godo. Of course, this is done properly in 20 inch.
A few different colors is there, or are you just sticking with that one?
So these are the colors,
right?
Yeah,
cool.
For that. This one, I was still prototyping, so the color's a bit wrong here with the knobs and stuff, and the pickups, but.
I think this is cool. Look, I think there's nothing really left to do other than for you to just maybe try and take us through a few of those tones, or just play some shreddy kind of stuff, so we get a little bit of an idea of what it's like if you're cool to do that.
You can hear what tone sounds like.
Yeah.
Make sure I got the right stuff. Your normal. Your normal, your go-to stuff. So the harmonic response is actually very good.
You're not having, again, for that heavy sort of chugging stuff that you were doing at the beginning, I'm not hearing any of that sort of spring noise that you often hear on a trem guitar, where you see people that have the hairband round here, and it's very tight sounding, which I guess is largely sort of thanks to this system down here.
Yeah,
cool.
It's this how do you say, talking about guitar sound and stuff. Mm-hmm. My previous experience, I used to play a guitar that had frets that are not glued in, and when I had those frets glued in, it sounded warmer, just tone transfer was better. All those little things affects the tone of the guitar, right? Even the tuning pegs here, they are plastic for a reason, because the lighter it is, the better the guitar sound. And I have experimented with this, putting different tuning heads in. One that's like heavier, and it's like, oh, the guitar sounds different now. So
I think I've seen a video of Paul doing that. Maybe it might have even been on the John Mayer Silver Sky, but there was something again where he was saying, yeah, the plastic, going over to the plastic tuners made a difference to the sound.
Yeah.
So I do love watching. I love the fact that there's a section of the internet that just doesn't believe that anything makes a guitar sound different other than literally the pickups and the strings. That's the only two things. And then there's obviously you go to the full Paul Reed Smith extreme where he's just like, he's taken plastic nuts and bone nuts and dropping them on a table and listening to the noise that the nut makes as it hits the table and going, oh right, yeah, that guitar's going to sound more like this. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm a believer in, I'm not sure I necessarily understand the science, but this guitar sounds like the sum of everything and the player, and probably to a degree the environment as well. And yes, there are parts of the guitar that have a bigger difference than others, but I think you can change anything and some minuscule something changes, right? And there are some guitar players like you that are more in tune of being able to hear it, and there are some guitar players that can't hear it. So, but I'm sure it is making a difference.
Yeah, it's experience. The more you in touch with the instrument, the more you play it. Like Paul, in this case, also, he's been doing it for so long, and I, learned myself. It's like, I had my Ibanez signature guitar, which was 12 years in production, right? That design is from 2006. Yeah. When it came out in 2007. This design is now, which I got way more knowledge about the guitar. Back then, I was a beginner. I only had about, 5, 6 guitars. Now I've got 300, high-end guitars. So, playing all different guitars, and we talked about earlier before the video started, is playing different guitars is actually important, for you. It's like, it feels, if you play the same guitar, it's kind of boring. Yeah. For me, it's like, well, with all those incredible luthier out there, why would I just have knowledge of one guy? I gotta play different guitars and learn about it. So I have, Music Man, Jackson, you name it, right? All these guitars, bassy guitars, everything that's out there, I try to learn and play them. So this development of this guitar is about being inspired by everything around to create this new guitar that I think people will be like, wow, I haven't seen this thing.
I think that there are so many analogies for that. It's like you could live on the most beautiful beach in the most beautiful part of the world forever, and eventually you're just going to want to take a walk and see something else, right? And I feel I don't know why it is that I need or I want to have lots of guitars, but I do feel that there is a certain joy and I'm sure it does stimulate some additional creativity or something where you can just go, I'm just going to play something different today, or I'll play that one, and it might well be, if you're in a professional capacity, that when you're going to go on stage to do a DragonForce gig, you need the best one. That's it. But for the other 300 days of the year or whatever like that, I think you do just want to be able to go, I'm going to play this Strat with a bad action, and I'm going to play this guitar that doesn't really stay in tune, but there's something about it that, I don't know, stimulates some creativity or just...
Oh, definitely. An easier guitar to play definitely helps you create different kind of things. And a guitar that's hard to play also slows you down, makes you think of the notes a bit more. So I sometimes I do pick up a guitar with a baseball bat neck, and I won't try to play fast on it. It's just it's fighting you.
If anyone else is out there and feels like maybe they're starting slightly later, than whether it be 16 or 17, 18 years old, what was there sort of one thing that you felt that you sort of repetitively did during those first year or two of playing that somehow accelerated the learning journey? Like, just even if it's not about learning, just something that felt like it got your fingers moving a bit faster, or...
I would say sometimes playing too much doesn't necessarily make you better. Listening is a key. And when you first start playing the guitar, it's difficult, right? What can help you keep playing and try and keep doing it is So a lot of time I spend, even now, I still do the same practice. I put my favorite music on and I play along to it.
Right.
Because if I mess up, something good still sounds. There's still something good sounding out there. So if you play along to your favorite music, there's something you can relate to, enjoy. So even if you're trying to play along or improvise or making noises, whatever you do, it's always I always find that a soothing and relaxing way of doing it. So improvising, practicing with your favorite music playing at the background, teach you timing, teach you to play in key. And give your mind something cool to listen to while you're playing to it.
You know what? And that's really interesting because I think there's I've heard teaching advice to say don't noodle. What you've just described I call noodling. So it's just jamming around to your favorite music. And there are some teachers who will go, noodling is fun, but it's not real practice. Practice is learn something, repeat it till you can do it. But I think it's quite refreshing to hear from someone that's made it as a professional guitar player to a really high level to actually go, no, just noodle. Noodle is good.
You gotta noodle, otherwise it becomes boring. You're just practicing to the metronome all the time. And the metronome doesn't make you play in key. Noodling is, this sounds terrible. I should be up here in these frets. It's I would say music, for me, primary number one thing to do if you're starting whatever age is having fun. Having fun is before anything else.
Great advice. Well, Herman, thank you so much for coming down today. I'm almost sorry we have to cut this short, but I'm afraid your flight will not wait for an Andertons video. So look, it's been wonderful to meet you. Good luck with the guitar. If you're interested in this guitar, links below will take you to the Andertons website. You can see all the photos and spec and everything. You can find out the price. That's great. It's been a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow.